It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey everybody! It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey gang.
And Les Webster.
Hello all.
And unfortunately that is all this week. Liz could not join us due to personal reasons, but she'll be back with us next week. And Liz, we miss you and hope things are doing alright. And of course, I hope everybody out there is doing okay and things have been going your way. So, what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Well, my corner of the galaxy. So this week, I had a sick kid all weekend.
Woohoo!
Yeah. But I also have kind of copped out the last couple of weeks on this section, so I decided I'm not copping out again. I don't care if I do have a sick kid. I'm still doing something fun. He had the flu, but he's fine, by the way.
Good.
So I'm still working my way through that 100 Years of Horror series that I found on Amazon Prime. I also stumbled across something with kind of a similar bent to it, and it's a book. And the book is called Monsters from the Vault, Classic Horror Films Revisited. And what it is this dude has kind of a movie review blog, and he is mostly into old horror movies. So this book is kind of an assembly of brief reviews of horror movies ranging from the early 30s to up into the 70s. And it's the stuff that you wouldn't necessarily normally think of. It's kind of, there's some B movies on the list. There's some better than B movies. There's some worse than B movies. He covers a couple of movies that Mystery Science Theater 3000 did, but only a couple, at least so far, that I've read. And it's really it's a really cool kind of, I almost want to call it a resource for if you don't know where to start if you want to get into some older horror movies and you're not sure where to start, and there's just gajillions of them out there. This is a pretty solid list that he's got going here in this book, and it is available on Kindle for like $4, because I'm pretty sure I got it on a special at one point. And this book is only a year or two old, so it's. I mean, I say it's current because all the movies in it are ancient, but it's actually kind of a nice. It works out well that I'm watching the TV show at the same time, which is not related, but the two work together really well because it's all about horror movies, and this is all about horror movies, and it's almost kind of a different perspective. And there's a little bit of crossover. They mention some of the same movies, but there's enough difference there that it's very cool, very helpful. I'm pretty sure it's going to inspire me to go find some old horror movies.
Like you needed any encouragement.
Fool that I am. Right. Yeah, I needed a whole lot of arm twisting for that, but this is going to give me a list to branch out from, which is really cool.
Nice.
That does sound like fun.
Monsters from the Vault.
I will try to track that one down myself.
Cool. So, how about you, Les?
I did some thumbing through trades and such, single issues, tried to catch up on some titles. I read Nemo, The Roses of Berlin, one of the stories by Alan Moore and Kevin O'Neill. This is a branch off from the Extraordinary Gentleman line of books. It's a pretty good read. Short but good. I also read from long ago, Codename Knockout. This is the first trade of the series that they did. I think there may be 3 books in the series. It ran about 12, maybe between 12 and 20 issues. And you've got the voluptuous young, well, we talked to her before. She was working good versus evil, and thoroughly enjoyed that. I'm in the middle of The Adventures of Apocalypse Al right now by Straczynski and Codename. J. Michael has a tendency to write a lot of different stuff everywhere, and it's a fun read. But I was thinking that hopefully they would go a little further, but by the looks of it, this was something that they just did and said, okay, we're done. It's a funny read, but I wish there was more. And lastly, the very disgusting prelude to Thor Ragnarok that Marvel put out. Sorry, Marvel readers, but this was dribble. I thought they were going to put out a story that would be something to lead into the movie. But no, this was just reprints of stuff. And I was really disappointed. But the good outweighed the bad on that run of books. So I was happy.
Cool.
That's quite a wide range of stuff there.
Definitely. Well, for myself, I have continued my trend of picking up epic collections and digging into them. And this time, I had picked up X-Men, Children of the Atom, and this contains the first 23 issues of the 60s run. So this is classic Kirby and Lee. And a lot of this I had read sometime during the past through reprints, or I may actually have an issue or two here or there. But it's kind of nice going back and reading these again. And it's funny because I caught something I've never caught before, and I just wonder if someone has ever written a letter and got a no prize for coming up with how to fix this situation. And what I'm talking about is this is the issue after their very first encounter with the Sentinels, and Beast and Iceman were injured. Iceman was kind of injured pretty badly, so they've been taken to the hospital. And Xavier followed him as a concerned citizen. And it's funny because all this time you're reading all these mental messages he's telling them. You know, be careful. Do not let them know your secret identities and this kind of stuff. Telling Iceman, don't de-ice. Telling Beast, don't let them take your mask off and all that. And and he goes and visits Iceman in his room, see how he's doing, and then he rolls into Beast's room, and the doctor's kind of looking over him and all that, and he's making this comment about how well his powers of recuperation are incredible and all that, and then Beast asks, Professor, how's Iceman? Is he improving? And he says, no, McCoy, he's not really improving, but he's in great hands.
Whoops.
Then the next panel, he tells him again, make sure, do not let them take your mask off. And the doctor says, I would really like to examine him a little bit more in all this. And he says, well, and Xavier goes, well, they have secret identities. They need to protect themselves and their loved ones and all that. But I'm like, you just told him his last name.
That's funny.
Wow.
I was like, oh my God, how did I not notice this before?
Boy.
Jeez, who was editing those things at the time?
Yeah.
I can give you a pretty good hint on who was editing the books at the time.
I have a pretty good idea. I have a good guess.
Yeah.
Whoops.
It's the same guy who was writing the book.
See, and you should never edit your own writing. It's just a bad idea. It just doesn't work.
They should be ashamed of themselves.
Wow. I just like, I kind of kicked myself. I was like, how did I not notice that before? Just kind of involved in the story, and it was like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
wow.
That's great.
But it's a great little collection because it's, like I said, it's the early stuff, and of course you got the first appearance not only of X-Men but Magneto and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Back when they were evil.
That's right. I already mentioned the Sentinels and Juggernauts in there. It's a wide assortment of the classic villains just showing up in the first 23 issues, and what people don't realize, X-Men was so popular in the 90s and 2000s, and they're trying to come back now. But in the 60s, that was a bi-monthly book, so that's essentially 2 years worth of books there in this one collection.
Yeah.
And the book was canceled with issue 65 or 66, and then went into reprint mode until Giant Size X-Men came out, and that was early to mid 70s. So from like 66 to 93 was all just reprints of earlier stuff.
Wow.
And then you kind of go, okay, well, what was the thinking there? It was not doing well enough to where, you could keep doing new stories, but obviously it was well enough to say, well, let's just reprint the stuff and see if it sells. I don't understand the thinking, but
it didn't sell the first time. Why is it going to sell now?
Right.
When you're not putting forth any effort into it at all.
Yeah. It's a little crazy. So
it's not like it's cheaper to print.
Well, it's not like they have to pay the writer and artist again.
There is that, but they didn't pay them all that well at that point in the first place. So
that's a very good point too. Alrighty. Before we get into this week's topic, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors, the fine folks at Things from Another World, for being a proud sponsor of Fellowship of the Geeks. And currently, they are running just their evergreen deals, but they're still awesome deals, including 40% off of select comics, statues, toys, and merchandise, 30% off select pre-order manga titles, and the ever-popular 50% off Nick and Dent comics. So what I suggest you do is go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and click on our sponsors page. We'll have all the latest deals that they're running, as well as these deals, and you can find out more information. And there will be links there that you can click on. That'll take you to their website. Let them know that we sent you their way. And just go ahead and take advantage of some of these great deals that are going on. Alrighty. For this week's going to be a little fun. Not that we don't have fun all the time, but
we amuse
a little bit more. It's going to be a little bit more lighthearted after last week. Let's just say that.
Yeah, that won't be difficult.
Our good friend Danny sent us a suggestion about talking about our favorite. I believe he specified board games, but we can just go ahead and open up to any kind of games. Maybe not necessarily video games, but because we're not really video game players here, but just any kind of games. So with that, we're going to kind of go over some of our favorite games. And with that, I'm opening the floor to whoever would like to go first.
Wait, we have a floor?
It's a virtual floor.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Best kind. All right, since I'm the one being a smartass, I'll go first.
Yeah.
And my first game, and see, I actually did try to stick to board games, which is funny because I'm not a huge board game player because I'm more into strategy type stuff, and for the most part, board games usually have some sort of random element. Most of them have dice of some sort, or a lot of them have dice, and dice and I are old enemies from way back. But that's a different story. But I went back a few years for my first one, and I may actually be stealing one from one of you guys here, but I'm going to go with Clue because I really liked Clue. I will admit it is a game I don't play anymore. I think it's a game that loses playability after a while, but you've got the dark mystery element to it, the whodunit thing, and it just kind of was a fun thing for me because I've always read a lot of varying fiction, but mystery was always high on the list. Mystery and suspense. So for me, it was just kind of a nice little fit. I probably played most of this, I want to say high school era. I could be wrong. That would have been late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, like I said, I played it kind of a lot for a little while and then burned out on it. A, I tend to do that, and B, like I said, this is a game with a limited number of outcomes, so you kind of play through it a few times and it starts to lose kind of the shine. But I think it's a fairly simple game, as I recall, and easy to pick up for even. Murder is a kind of a rough theme for kids, I would say, but for like a group of high schoolers, or even I'd almost go middle schoolers, it could be a fun way to kill an evening,
No pun intended.
I actually, yeah, that wasn't intended.
Well, you could always play the Golden Girls version where you're trying to figure out who ate the last piece of cheesecake.
Is that a real thing?
Yes, that is a real thing.
That disturbs me.
Well, there's variations of that game. There's also a Firefly where you're supposed to find out who kidnapped. Oh God, I'm so blanking on the name right now.
River?
Yeah, River.
That's the one that usually gets kidnapped.
Right, of course. But yeah, this was actually on my list, so yeah.
I wondered if you'd have it on there.
Yeah. I enjoy. I had not played it in forever, but yeah, I remember playing it when I was younger. I was never really good at it, but I still had fun. I wouldn't mind playing it again. And like I said, there's variations off that.
Oh yeah, different. They put different covers on it. Like I said, Golden Girls and Firefly, and Lord, that's just scraping. That's just the tip of the iceberg.
Right. But yeah, I enjoyed the game, and of course when they decided to do a movie, I enjoyed the movie, and then the recent miniseries was fun too. So.
Yep, those things were all very cool.
All right, cool. You want to go next, Les, or I can?
No, go ahead, please.
Alrighty, I kind of figured. This was a game I played when I was younger. I hadn't played it in forever, and I don't even know if they still make this game. But it was Battleship. I played I played classic Battleship, and then I played electronic Battleship as well. It was kind of an interesting kind of game, you know. It's kind of a little strategy, trying to figure out okay where your ships are where your opponent's ships are located, and make sure you're going the right direction so you can sink it and not get sunk yourself. It could get aggravating sometimes.
Especially when the opposition decided, no, you missed me on that one.
Yeah.
Somehow you hit both ends of the ship, but you can't hit the middle.
Yeah, it does require a certain amount of honesty.
True.
Yeah.
Among opponents here, but yeah, it's easy to cheat at. They're still making those, by the way. My kid got one, I think, for Christmas last year. It was a Star Wars themed battleship.
Oh, cool.
Not electronic or anything, just just the game.
That is
Awesome.
cool.
Yep, with little.
Although I couldn't be. Go ahead.
Little freestanding minis there was an X-wing, and there's a Corellian cruiser, and there's obviously Death Star, not a Death Star, just Star Destroyer and TIE Fighter, and just various little Millennium Falcon. And you just little holes in them. You can stick the little pegs in them, just like the old days.
Although I should not be surprised that they've done that.
Of course not. Not in this day and age where there's almost as much of a board game renaissance as there is a comics renaissance these days.
Right.
If comics is huge on Kickstarter, we'll put it this way: if comics is huge on Kickstarter, board games is probably even more so.
Right.
Yeah, I'd agree to that too.
Alrighty, Les.
I'm going to go way back,
Uh-oh.
since I am way back, and bring up Concentration. Concentration was based on the TV series. There was a game show, and it was it Art? Was it Art or was it Hugh? It's either Art. Who was the first guy on Jeopardy? Do you recall?
No.
That's okay. One of those two had it, and it was a game show where you had to concentrate and try to do pairings on the board. They came out with the game, and it's great for about 3 games, and then you're done. Although they had it was inside the box was a scroll, so you could scroll down and get the next game. And there was probably 50 feet of games on there. So you would scroll, you had a new game, you'd put the pieces back in, and you'd start up. So for our family, we had 4 kids living at home. Anything to keep us occupied, my parents loved. So this was a time consumer. And you could play pairs or you could play singles. And usually fights broke out. So all the fun was had by all.
Of course.
Well, sure. Any reason to punch your little brother or sister is a good time.
It's the best.
Art Fleming was the first host of Jeopardy.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Art Fleming was the first host, and he also did, I believe he did Concentration. Like I said, it's either he or Hugh Downs.
Cool. Mikey?
Oh, I'm up again. Cool.
Yeah. There's only 3 of us.
There's only 3, right? Okay. I'm gonna. This is. We're talking board games. This one is almost a cheat answer. But the reason it's almost a cheat answer is because it really is a good game. And this is one from, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago it came out, and it was a huge hit then, and it's still pretty much just as popular. And it is called Settlers of Catan. I do not know if you guys have played this game, but it is essentially a game where you collect resources and build stuff. And for the most part, you're building roads you've got cities and you've got roads. And you've got these tiles, which are hexagons. And your cities have to be a certain number of spaces apart, and you have to build roads between them, and you have to connect all your cities together. And there are a couple of different ways you can win, and each of the tiles has a different type of terrain, which gives you a specific resource. There are 5 different resources. You use them in combinations to build things. That's probably the fastest version I've ever heard of how to play Settlers of Catan. But it's one of those games that the board is big enough and you can get enough people playing that there's a lot more playability. You can play it over and over again and get different results every time because you're basically shuffling the tiles every time. So the board itself is different. And it's just a really cool game. It is, for someone who's a little more strategy minded like me, it's a little more fun than a dice-based game or a cards-based game. And honestly, this has been one of the most popular games in the world for, like I said, 10 or 15 years now. There are tournaments for this. There are people all over the place play this game. This is one of those gateway games that people who don't know anything about games have a Settlers of Catan box in their closet that they pull out every so often. It's that popular. It's that pervasive.
The closest I've played to it was the Star Trek version, and I didn't get too far into it because I don't remember. Something happened where we had to break up the game, but it is a cool premise. I like the game, but I just never had a chance to actually go back and try to play it. I think Les was there I think Les and I were trying to play it. I don't know. Les, have you had a chance to actually play the game?
Yes. You and I were sitting there, and on another occasion, I was able to get in there and try to learn part of it anyway. It was interesting. There's a lot of thought process in this, which usually leaves me out. But this was very engaging too. So by keeping my interest, that was a really big plus.
Yeah, see, that's the deal with it. Is there's kind of enough stuff there to make it it's a little bit complicated, but not so much that you can't really grasp it. And so it's because believe me, there are okay, one of the things in the board game world that we don't talk about board games much, so hasn't really come up. There are kind of 2 different styles. I mean, there are lots of different types of games and all that, but there are 2 just very general styles. There's Euro games and there's American games. Euro games are a lot more strategy based and usually have lots of little counters and markers and stuff. American games are prettier and more based on art and simpler to play. Catan is kind of when I called it a gateway earlier, it's kind of a gateway toward that Euro game style. It's a very simple Euro style game. It's got mechanics and all of that, and it's more strategy based. Whereas the American games are honestly, you roll the dice and you draw a card and you see what happens. Much simpler. So Catan is kind of a nice gateway into that Euro style of game, which is the kind of game that you kind of almost have to be on the inside of the games. I don't want to say inside the industry, but you have to be at least a little more aware. You have to seek out those games a little more. So it's a great gateway for that style of game. So it's the kind of game that expands your gaming horizons, as it were.
Good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yep. Okay. My next one is a game that's been out just for a few years. Les and I have played it, and it's kind of it's a fun little multiplayer game. It's called Splendor, and it's where you're buying you're buying gems to where you can be able to produce. It's basically where you're trying to produce your own gems and all that to appease your sponsors. I believe that was what they called sponsor. What were the people called? I don't remember right now.
It's like lords and ladies and things like that.
Right.
Making these purchases for.
Right. It's a quick game, but you know there's a little thinking to it because you gotta realize what you got and what you can to where you can be able to purchase other resources to other nobles. That's right. To where you can be able to gain the nobles, and that's how you're able to win. I hadn't played it in a while, but it was a fun. It's a really quick learn, and it's about maybe a 30-40 minute game.
Yeah.
It's real quick, but it's a blast.
Yes, I remember hearing about Splendor, and that it was a really good game. It was, I would say, it won some awards or something in like the gaming industry.
Right.
But I never did get a chance to play it.
It's well worth the time. It's a game that once you get started, you get hooked. And when you're hooked, you're there for the rest of the game.
Right.
You're not going to be able just to say, well, I'm done, and walk away.
Yeah. It's a relatively simple game, but it does challenge you because you got to be wise with your moves. And that's pretty cool. I mean, it's not so much just like you were talking about earlier, just a roll of dice or a spin of a wheel. There's some chance to it where you got to strategize.
You have to pay attention to what the others are doing too.
That's a good point too, because you got to watch them and make sure that maybe you might be block them off from trying to make a move to where they can win. And hopefully someone doesn't sit there and call it a shot.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll explain that maybe a little bit later. We'll see. But yeah, it's a fun game. All right, Les. Oh, thank you.
Back in the early 60s, there came a game called Lie Detector. And it was a whodunit. It was an electronic game. It was by battery, of course. And you got to question various characters and to see if they were telling the truth or lying. And it was by process of elimination as to who done it. And I think the premise was some jewels were stolen. So you were trying to discover who did it, and you had probably, I want to say, 24 to 32 cards, suspects to question. And if they were telling the truth, that the meter on the game would tell you. If they were lying, it would ding and show you on the meter that they were lying there too. It's a fun game. It's obviously, you might be able to find it at a vintage toy store now, but it probably lasted about, production probably lasted about 3 years.
Oh, a whodunit game, huh?
Woohoo!
Yeah, who'd have thunk it, huh?
I know, shocking. But yeah, I don't remember playing that one, but I do kind of remember seeing it around.
Yeah, it sounds vaguely familiar to me. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I've not played that one.
Sounds cool though.
Yeah, definitely.
It was probably a little before you guys too, so I could understand you not being able to play it.
Alrighty. Mikey, you have another choice?
I do have another choice.
Okay.
And this is a different kind of game. I mean, it's kind of a subgenre. Um, it's what is, I guess, generally referred to as a deck building game. Basically, you've got a pretty wide array of these small decks of cards. Each of them has some different resource or ability or power on it. And you can either do it randomly or you can choose. I want to say the number 10 is jumping into my head. I'm not sure that's right because it's actually been a while since I played this. But there's somewhere in the vicinity of 10 different types of cards that you can use. And you get a stack of cards of that type and you shuffle them together and you start drawing kind of Magic the Gathering is similar to this. Although this is Magic is there's a lot more options with Magic, but this game is called Dominion, and there actually have been several expansions and variations of it that came out. This was all, I'm not sure exactly when this game came out. It's within the last 10 years. A couple of friends of mine kind of got me into it there for a little bit, and I played with them for a while. And there actually was also a smartphone app that you could download. I believe it was free to start with, because that's how they always get you.
Right.
But it had a fairly simplified version of the game that you could just play on your smartphone. I guess it's still out there. I don't have the app anymore. But it's again, it's another game that you're really just flipping cards. There's not like dice with this one or anything. Or drawing, you're drawing, I want to say it was a small hand of cards, like 5 or something like that, 5 or 6, which you could then play and have certain things happen. And it's another one of those games that was kind of just complicated enough to be fun, but not too complicated to be fun. And at this point, there are, I'm sure, tons of variations on that style of game, the deck building game out there. But Dominion was essentially the first one I ran into because I never even got started on anything like Magic. So that was one that once I spotted it, it was pretty obvious that it was going to be a money pit, and I just wasn't. When I spotted it, I was like, nah, I ain't got the money for that. So I stayed away from it. And so Dominion came along later, and I thought it was a very cool game, very interesting game.
Cool. Very cool. Well, I'm going cards as well then. It's a game that I came across a couple of years ago and got less involved in a few others, and it's a blast to play. and it's called Flux. And there's only really one rule to play the game, because the rules change. And it's that you draw a card and you play a card. But the cards themselves there's rule changes, there's special actions, and the whole goal is to either get a combination of what they call keeper cards to win the game. But the goals can change as well as the rules and all of that. So it literally, the game can change literally from player to player in terms of action and direction and goals and all that. And it's a fun game, and it usually takes about 30 minutes or so to play. And the previously mentioned Called Shot, I'm gonna go ahead and put it on here on the record because he's happy to tell this story as well. So there was one time we were playing, and a friend of ours, James, was playing, and he called the shot. He said, "Hey, if no one does anything next time it comes to me, I'm gonna win." Well, I was the next person to play, and I had an action card that said to change hands with the person next to you. So I changed hands
with him.
With him.
Well, he said if nobody does anything.
That's right.
You did something. Yeah.
Yes.
It was a funny occasion, that's for sure.
That's great.
But it's a fun game. Like I said, it's real quick because there's really no rules to learn because they keep changing. And it was actually you talk about award winning. It got an award from Mensa.
Oh, nice.
So that should say something right there.
Yeah, it should say don't call your shots.
Well, that's true too. But.
Well, honestly, part of the joy of a board game setting is the trash talk. That's just part of it, some games are better about it and some games are worse about it. But, you're sitting around a table with friends, allegedly, and you're supposed to be having fun. Sometimes the trash talking is what makes it fun.
True.
Hey, yep, that is true.
And then there's games like Munchkin, which I've noticed nobody has listed yet.
Well, it was Les's turn. He might have mentioned it. Who knows?
I hope I didn't steal your thunder there, Les. But...
No, you didn't.
Okay.
But go ahead and talk about it.
Oh, it's not on my list. I have played it. It is a very popular game, at least among a certain crowd. It's a little bit, what's the term I'm looking for here? It plays to a specific group of people, a specific type of gamer, and it's mostly parody. It's a game that makes fun of itself heartily. So in that regard, I give it lots of credit, and I'm happy for Steve Jackson Games for it being as successful as it has been. It's kind of not my cup of tea. I have played it the couple of times it took me to get tired of it, and it's funny, but it's kind of not. It's another game that, at least for me, didn't have a lot of playability. So I kind of didn't mean to bring up a game that I didn't really recommend, but it's also an important game kind of in the industry. So.
But Munchkin I love the fact that they start you with your rules and say, if you know how to play it and the others don't, you can kind of make up the rules as you go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a great selling point.
And it's that cutthroat attitude that basically is the heart of the game, which is my deal with it is that's fun the first couple of times. And just being cutthroat for the sake of being cutthroat is not really fun for me as a gamer.
Okay.
So, and part of that is that, I mean, the reason I'm not big into board games is the competitive aspect. I mean, there are games that are designed to be cooperative rather than competitive. But generally speaking, board games are competitive in nature, and that's not appealing for me. I don't like me when I'm competitive, so I don't like to do that anymore. So I'm usually good with a game until I learn how to play it. Once I learn how to play it, I start strategizing, and then I get that over competitive thing going, and I start getting annoyed with myself for not winning, and that's not fun for anybody. So I try when I play board games, it's usually a few times until I start getting a handle on the rules, and then I just stop because it's going to stop being fun for everybody around me, in addition to me. So, you know, that's my deal.
Makes sense.
So a lot of the game, even some of the games I mentioned, I have played them a limited number of times, and generally that's by design. But they're interesting games nonetheless. I can find them interesting until I get, like I said, to the point where they start making me crazy. Until I start turning green. Anyway, Les, I hijacked your turn. It's your turn.
No,
Sorry.
no hijacking involved. The next one I want to talk about is Dark Tower. This was a electronic game. Once again, batteries, not a handheld. It concerned a large tower in the center of your playing board, and you would fight. You would move your people toward the tower, and as you did, you may have to fight the armies that are coming out from the tower. You would get a number as to how many you would have to fight. And then you would have to try to figure out if you had enough men there, plus the weaponry, to take them down. It was a fun game. That one lasted 1 year. They were told to take it off the market.
Wow. Why?
You can, because I think they said it was an infringement on a title, but this was before Stephen King did the Dark Tower series, I'm pretty sure. But you can go online and find Dark Tower refurbished units that you can buy. You can buy the tower or the pieces or the whole thing together. And it was always fun to play. I had people visiting and they would want to stop and play Dark Tower because they knew I had it. I was one of the few people that did at that time. But it was a good fun game.
Was that the one that there was a TV commercial done by Orson Welles?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was.
Because I just saw something. I think it was Dark Tower. I just saw that real recently. It came on one of my, I don't know if it was Twitter or Facebook feeds. I think it was commercial. And I think it was for Dark Tower, but I could be wrong.
That's cool.
Well, it was funny because I saw the video, and then, of course, one of the other options you could watch, I had to go ahead and click on it again because I hadn't seen it in a while, and it was and I know I'm going off topic. And of course, we love doing that. Is the Orson Welles commercials for Pumice on wine, and he was totally shit faced.
Mhm.
And it's like 2 or 3 minutes of this, and then of course the continua takes, and he's just blowing his lines and not knowing what he's saying. you know, and there was like one point he was just kind of sitting there, and they were waiting for him to kind of say his lines. He's like, "Oh, I thought he was supposed to say something," and you're just like, "Oh my God, this is Orson Welles! Wow!" So
But yeah, I'm looking. I just pulled up the Wikipedia page for the game,
yeah,
and there is a link to the original TV commercial with Orson Welles.
okay.
So it is that game.
So that was it. All right, cool.
Yep. Neat. Yeah, I don't. Again, this is another one where the box looks familiar, but I don't think I ever played it. So I probably saw it somewhere, but heard about it when it came out or whatever. I would have been pretty young at this point, but
Right.
that doesn't mean I wouldn't have seen it.
Yeah, I when I watched the video, I was like, this vaguely looks familiar. So I probably seen the commercials way back in the day, but no, this is not a game that I had played. So it sounds like fun.
Yeah, this is about the time I started getting. And it's funny that this says the game came out during the height of the role-playing game craze in the early '80s, which was about the time I started getting into role-playing games. So there you go.
There you go.
I was busy playing D&D and not this.
Hmm. Cool. So any other choices? Do we have any more, or are we?
Um, I'll throw in a bit of an honorable mention,
Okay.
mainly because it's a complete detour. Um,
Woohoo!
and well, I mean, and it's legitimately, I mean, as I kind of just mentioned, it's the main reason that I didn't play a lot of board games when I was in that age range, where you normally would get a lot of board games like that, like 12 to 18 range. Where I mean, we played some board games, but there wasn't a whole lot of variety. But that's mostly because I was playing Dungeons and Dragons. And it was, I mean, it's a tabletop game. It's not a board game, but
Right.
you've got people sitting around a table or wherever they're happening to play. Um, then I've been in groups that play around the table. I've been in groups that just sit around the living room on a couch and play. Wherever you have room to spread out and do it. Um, it is one of those games you can play as much or as little as you like, and it's obviously kind of specifically fantasy based, and there are, especially nowadays, countless different varieties, different types of games that you can play. I mean, for any genre you can dream up, um, and there are lots of different game systems that they use now. I mean, just again, practically countless different styles of RPG that you can find. Dungeons and Dragons is obviously the one of the best known ones, because it's really kind of one of the early ones. Um, but yeah, I wasted a lot of my childhood doing that, and not an insignificant amount of my adult years too.
Hmm. I can testify to some of that.
Good Lord, I'm creeping up on 40 years of playing these games.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah. I say that. I have to be honest, I haven't really played that much in the last, say, 3 years or so. It's been very limited. But it's for me, it was a lot of fun.
Understandable.
Again, not
Yeah.
strictly a board game, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. Les, have you did you ever have a chance to play D&D? Now Mike knows because I've played with him.
Yes.
I played with him a bit.
Among other games, so we played other role playing games too. So
We played GURPS,
did some GURPS,
which
did
was
some Marvel superheroes back in the day.
Oh God, I was trying to black that out.
Well, yeah, me too, but it's true, we did.
No, not now. Now, for people that are listening out there, it's not because because of the system. It was because of what we did. That kind of.
Oh, we had fun, but we clearly needed supervision. We'll put it that way.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
needed somebody telling us no, which we didn't really have.
And for more information, you need to come and either see me or Mike, and we may tell you the story.
Yeah, there may be a bribe that will get me to tell some of those stories. I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
Right.
I did not play them. I do have a set of for the game itself. It was when it first came out. It was in little boxes. I still have that, and that was when it was first starting out. I grabbed one of those and never tried it. It's still sitting in the box.
Now, what does this box look like? Okay, let me ask this.
Oh,
Let me ask it this way: what color is the box?
it's got like a painted cover,
Okay, okay.
and I believe it was TSR. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, yeah. Um, One of the identifiers of very early D&D games, um, the first box was white. There were
Okay.
then the and this would have been like 1974. By like the late 70s, you had what is known as the red box, which was kind of a beginner set, and obviously was red. There was also the blue box, which was a slightly more advanced set, and then once they kind of got through that phase, they started just putting books out. But so there's a white box, a red box, and a blue box. I'd have to look to see if I still have my red box. That would be how long ago I was playing this game. I do not have a white box, but I do have a red box.
That's kind of
But yeah,
cool.
then they also, while they were putting books out, they would also occasionally slap a box set together, and you've probably got one of those. I have a few of those myself.
Cool.
Yeah, I had the red box too. I don't know what the heck happened to it.
Well, like I said, I'm not sure where mine. I'm not sure even if I still have mine. It's probably in a box somewhere around here. I haven't seen it in years.
Well, what I probably did is like what I did with my Star Frontiers, which was the stupid thing to do, is take it all apart, take the books all apart, and then three hole punch them so I could put them in a
Oh.
binder.
Oh.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, well, I was trying to be
it
organized.
was real convenient at the time, I'm sure, but
Yes,
yeah.
but it was not a wise thing to do.
Yeah, later on you become more of a collector and you start thinking, fuck, why did
There
I
you
do
go.
that?
Well, I know there are so many games out there
Oh, God,
that we
yes.
all played. We all played Monopoly. We all play. Did you guys play Life?
Oh, yeah, my kid actually
Yeah.
got one of those not long ago. He's got that. He's made me play it a couple of times. It's pretty much just as miserable as you remember.
I had a couple of games. One was called Millionaire, and it was a playing board plastic that had mountains and valleys and uh, areas where you would slide down. You played with a marble as your playing piece, and as you went around, you may drop down a secret passage and get somewhere else on the board. And that was a fun game. But, I was 8 years old, so I was easily occupied at the time.
I was gonna say this kind of sounds like a 3D version of Candyland, but
Yeah.
It kind of is.
yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing because I mean, Candyland has been around forever for a reason. It's a solid game.
We used to play Dogfight, which was a game with World War One airplanes.
Oh, okay, good.
And when you would attack someone, you would flip a card. It could be a barrel roll, or it could be a loop, or something like that. And if you were being attacked from behind, if you looped, all of a sudden you're behind them and you're on the attack. If you're in a barrel roll, you get out of the way. And obviously the idea was to crush your opponent's army or his air force
Right,
as you played.
shoot his planes down. Right.
Yeah.
I think I remember. I don't know if I ever played it, but I think I remember seeing this game.
And there's a game that I used to play with my father, and I loved to play it, and I wish I could remember all the rules, but that was cribbage. It was a card game. It could be 2 to 4 people, depending on what kind of board you had. But my father would always love to sit down and play cribbage, and I was the only one that learned how to play with him. So, had a great time. And that's a great strategy game.
Cribbage, the game that got Winchester into Korea. Woohoo!
Well, there's an obscure reference.
I'm surprised you didn't mention Risk, Les.
Yeah, we have bad feelings about Risk after all these years.
See,
That was
yeah. That was what?
Risk was the one that we used to play at the dorm on 4 board on 4 table or on 4 games. You would put them with the north touching the corners of the north part of the board touching adjacents, and you would have 4 worlds to conquer. And there's a weekend shot to hell.
But that's without
Homework?
sleeping.
What homework?
That's wild. Yeah, Risk was the game that helped me learn about my issues with dice. Because I have never been, well, I'm sure I have been so pissed off as I was, as that game used to make me, but because I never had any trouble with the strategic part of that game, ever. You know what I couldn't do? I couldn't fucking roll a dice worth a damn. That's what I couldn't do. And I would come up with these great strategies, and they would be I would outnumber my opponents 2 to 1, and my ass would lose that battle every time because I'm rolling shit on the dice. And I'm like, but the strategy is good, and that should be worth something, damn it. But it all comes down. That's the thing that pissed me off about Risk, is that always all came down to the die rolls.
Yeah.
And that would kill me every time. And it just drove me crazy. I quit playing it. I can't remember the last time I finished a game of Risk. I mean, not that anybody ever finishes a game of Risk. Anyway, it's kind of a long game if you're doing it right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could play. I'm good for about an hour, and then I'm done. I just can't take it anymore because I'm usually already gotten my ass kicked by then, and it just makes me crazy because I know I can out-strategize. Not to sound cocky, I can out-strategize a lot of my friends, and I can't win a game of Risk to save my life. It's enough to make you crazy.
There's something unfair about that.
Strangely enough, my friends never complained. And most of them thought it was funny as hell, but, it's all right. It served to entertain them, so whatever. It's all good.
Entertain them?
Yeah, entertain them, yes.
Okay. And right now, I want to promote the game Dice Masters. It's quick learning. It's with the group that we play. It's fun to play. And it's worth all the time. And time is not a big deal in this game. It's, you play a round in 30 minutes. You may play it in 5 minutes. You may play it in 10 minutes. You may have to take the whole 30. But to me, it's something that makes me concentrate. And if you can get me to concentrate, then you're doing wonders. But it's something that I recommend to everybody. It is a quick learn, so that makes a difference.
Yeah, I wondered when Dice Masters was going to come up.
Save it till late.
To end on a high note, right?
Hopefully.
And as long as that doesn't involve any of us singing, we're good.
Oh,
There you go.
Thank God.
Never mind.
Don't go clearing your throat, young man.
Well, I guess we ought to end on that note if we want to end on a high note. So, we're going to take a quick break and come back with our weekly picks. And we're back, and it's time for our weekly picks, and Mikey's leading off.
I'm leading off, and I'm going to lead off with an image book. Yeah. But I had to this time because one of my favorite books is coming back. I Hate Fairyland, number 16, comes out this week. This is the start of the 4th arc, and the only possible way to sum this up would be Gertrude goes to hell. And so how could I not possibly, how could there be any possible way that I could not be utterly ready to see that play out? Again, a reminder, this may look like a kid's book. It is not a kid's book. It is so not a kid's book. It is gleefully not a kid's book. But it is awesome.
Very cool. It is awesome.
That's very true.
Yep. Alrighty. I'm up next, and for my first choice, I'm going with IDW. And it's G.I. Joe versus the $6 Million Man. Kind of interesting premise here. Apparently, Cobra hacked into Steve Austin, and so all of a sudden he's going haywire and goes after the Joes, which, of course, that's what you want him to do.
Sure, why not?
Another popcorn book, but that's cool. Popcorn books are pretty cool. Those can be awesome. This could be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a blast.
I think you're right there too.
There's nothing wrong with popcorn.
Except
right.
when it catches in your teeth.
Well, that's true. I was trying to ignore that, but okay.
You brought up so many bad memories with that.
Okay, Les, you're up.
My first choice is from DC. It's a one-shot called Young Monsters in Love. You've got a slew of writers and even more artists on this one. And it's just I guess a spoof of some of the love books that DC used to put out, like True Romance and Young Love, things like that. But of course, this is a Valentine's Day special. So they're going to have a twist on it. And when you have, just like they say, monsters in love, it's going to be a little bit bizarre.
Bizarre
Oh, yeah.
good.
Bizarre is good. Yeah, this should be a fun one. And I'll definitely be picking that up because I've mentioned on prior podcasts I always go for the holiday specials. So,
Yep.
I do have Liz's picks, so we were going to go ahead and add them in. And for her first choice, she is going with Dynamite Entertainment, and it's Legendary Red Sonja #1. This is a 5-issue miniseries. And if you're not familiar with this, because this is actually a follow-up to a miniseries from last year. Was it last year or was it 2016? It's been relatively close.
I thought it was last year.
Okay. It probably was. But it's a steampunk version of Red Sonja. Because they did that with a lot of the other characters that Dynamite
Yeah, they're licensed
has
characters.
been doing. The license, yeah, like Vampirella and all that. So, so Legendary Red Sonja's coming back, and it looks like it might be pretty fun because it's talking about her being a pirate out on the seas. So, or she was. Now she's having to live in the big city. So, this probably be pretty cool.
Yep.
The covers are beautiful, and there's 5 of them or 4 of them. Yeah, there's 5 of them.
Yeah, I think it's 5.
Yep.
Yeah, and I do not remember details, but I remember the first story of this being pretty good too. So should be fun.
Yep.
It does sound fun.
Alrighty, Mike, you're up again.
Okay, I actually have a Dynamite book here too.
Woohoo!
This is another one with a lot of covers. But I am going with The Shadow Batman #5. This is 5 of 6, so this is not the last book, but it is getting there. And this is, I have to admit, this is actually a mini series that it took me a little bit of time to get into. The first issue didn't really do it for me, I guess. I was trying not to say that, but I'll just go ahead and go with the cliche there.
It didn't grab you?
It didn't grab me. But once I got into the second one, that it was a lot more interesting. And at this point, it's just a great story. The 2 main characters here, as well as Robin, the Damian Wayne Robin, are fighting against an unseen group known as the Silent Seven, and attempting to stop them from taking over the world, of course. And Shiwan Khan, who is one of the Shadow's old nemeses, it has really screwed with the boys bad. So the Shadow is, almost completely out of the picture. Batman is starting to have serious doubts about himself, and Damian is just Damian for the most part, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, we're at the point now where this is the point in the story where if all goes according to plan, they'll start to get it back together in order to make the final push to save the day. We'll see how that goes down. This is not a story that has been all that predictable, really. Props to Steve Orlando for making it interesting that way, for sure.
this is their rally issue.
Yeah.
This is the one that'll set the finale up, but they're going to rally and say, come on, let's go get them type situation. I'm looking forward to this one.
Do it for the Kipper.
Oh, another throwback.
Wow. And I wish you would throw it back.
Alrighty, I'm up again, and for my second choice, I'm going with a hardcover collection from DC Comics, and this is Challengers of the Unknown by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, and of course it was written by Jeff Loeb and art by Tim Sale. This was a miniseries back from, I believe it's the late 80s or early 90s, but the Challengers have been kind of in retirement, and due to a particular reporter kind of spurs them back into action, and of course they'll be the heroes that we know them to be. So I like when Loeb and Sale get together. Their stories are really cool. They did the different color miniseries for Marvel, such as Daredevil yellow, and there was Captain America white and Spider-Man blue. But of course they did the Long Halloween for the Batman 12-issue miniseries, and that's just a very small sample of what they've done, but some really good material. And I hate to say this, I have not read this, so I'm definitely picking it up to check it out.
You're going to have a good time. It was a fun read. And I'm a big fan of the Chows, but this made them look so sad. Just like, gee, we'll never be able to do this type situation. And it kind of hurt.
I'm not sure how I missed this, because I'm a fan of the Chows as well, but somehow I totally missed this miniseries. I don't know. That may have been during the time that I was out of comics. I'm a very short period of time, but I don't know. But I've got a chance to get back into it and get this. So
good. I'm glad to hear that.
Alrighty, Les, you're up again.
Coming from me is Deja Thoris #1, Dynamite Entertainment, and writing is by Amy Chu, art by Pasquale Quilano. I am looking forward to this one after reading issue 0, which was the setup of Deja as a child, and how she's going to venture out to find what they call the Gardens of Mars. The first issue was pretty intriguing, and I've got a feeling this is going to do well. I don't know how long a series this is to be, but I'm ready for it. And as we were discussing before going on air, I am getting the Frank Cho cover. I am a big fan of his art, and this is exquisite.
It is a very nice cover. And very little of her is covered on it. But yeah, I read the issue 0 and I liked it. So this is going to be fun to watch too.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting path. So yeah, I'm definitely curious about this one. And Liz's second choice is from DC, and it's the Mother Panic Batman Special #1, which is the second installment of the Milk Wars, which is the crossover between the DC universe and the Young Animal line. And this is written by Jody Houser, who we're a fan of her work. Obviously, she's done Mother Panic, but also did Faith and several other stories with art by Ty Templeton. So this is gonna be pretty awesome work.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's a backup tale that's written by Magdalene Vicasago.
Visaggio, maybe?
Yes, thank you. And, of course, she's the one that wrote the Black Mask Kim and Kim. Mask Studios Kim and Kim. So she's doing the backup tale. So this ought to be pretty cool. This is going to be a very interesting little crossover mini-series, whatever you want to call it. Especially with it being called Milk Wars, so it's not going to be your standard crossover.
Sounds like an interesting pairing either way.
Right.
Here. And this is just before them bringing out the Mother Panic return, isn't it?
Yes. After all this is done, there's going to be a new launch of titles. Basically, it's kind of a rebranding. Like Mother Panic's going to be called Mother Panic, I believe, AD, and then Shade the Changing Girl is going to be Shade the Changing Woman. And Cave Carson has a cybernetic eye. It's going to be Cave Carson has a interstellar eye. But of course, Doom Patrol has not been affected, but you have these other books. So, it's just a lead up to that. And our honorable mention this week is...
Our honorable mention this week is a Dark Horse book. And this almost feels like a cheat after we talked about Sergio Aragonis not long ago. But Gru, Play of the Gods, the trade paperback, comes out this week. This is their most recent adventure. This was a story in which Gru managed to attract the attention of the gods, not surprisingly from that title. But he did so basically by being on the outskirts of a country who kind of accidentally created a new god. So there's a little bit of insight as to how that works in the Gruniverse. And I don't even know if that's a real thing they call it, but it seemed like the thing to say at the time.
It is now.
I probably saw that written somewhere. It's just Gru. I mean, come on. It's lots of fighting, lots of fray, lots of cheese dip, lots of eating until you can't move no more, lots of rougher toe.
Lots of erring.
Lots of airing, yes.
Yes,
airing. All kinds of... It's just... Gru is just so much fun. I mean, this is no big shock. We're all big fans of Gru. This is, like I said, the latest trade. So, very much fun.
Very cool.
That is cool.
Alrighty. Any special mentions this week? Special shout-outs?
Nothing springs to mind.
Not here.
I'd like to take one real quick. Shout out to Dinesh Shamadasina. I'm sure I'm butchered the last name. The CEO or former CEO of Valiant Entertainment. I'm sure you've heard the news by now that Valiant Entertainment has been sold to DMG, and because of this, he is stepping down He was part of the resurgence of Valiant Comics.
Big part of it.
Big part of it. And the reason why for the shout out is several years ago, before Valiant came back, they were prepping to get Valiant back up and going. Was kind of about the time that we started up our website, and I was posting news items from basically I'd cited other sources and all that. And it was because of him that Valiant became one of our first publishers that we received press releases and review materials. So they were the first ones, and it was because of him. He just did a call out on Twitter. I saw it and I responded, and he gave us a shot, and that's how we got into doing reviews for the website. So we owe him at least a tip of the hat, and thank him for bringing back Valiant, and has done such a wonderful job. Obviously, to the point that this happened. So thank you very much, and good luck on your future endeavors.
Yep, he didn't just bring back Valiant; he made it awesome.
Yep.
So definitely.
I mean, it wasn't him alone. Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't just him, but he was obviously, like I said, he was one that helped us. He kind of turned the direction for the fellowship. So, so I think we owe him a little bit of at least a thank you and a special shout out.
Hear, hear.
I'm down with that.
Alrighty, since there's no other special shout-outs, we'll get to our regular shout-outs. Obviously, Manny the Martyr for supplying us the music for our podcast. You should definitely check out their music. There's be a link in the show notes, and obviously there'll be a link on our podcast page, or podcast page of the website. Thank you very much, guys. Obviously, the fine folks that make up the Podern family on Twitter for spreading the word of the fellowship, retweeting and liking, obviously, our links and all of that. Thank you very much, guys. We highly recommend you go into Twitter and do a search, hashtag Podern Family, that's one word, and check out some of these awesome shows that are being put out. Once again, thank you guys very much. And finally, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for checking out our previous episodes. We value your feedback. You have a comment, suggestion, question, complaint, whatever. Well, maybe not whatever, but you want to reach out to us. There are several ways you can do that. Email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net would be a quick way to get it to us, or you can go to our website. That's www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. Click on our About Us tab, and there's a form there that you can fill out. Or you can contact us through social media. We are on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks. That's all one word. And obviously we're on Twitter, at Fellowship Geeks. Feel free to follow us there if you wish. Most of us have our own personal Twitter account, which feel free to follow us. Mike has one, at Mikey Geek. Liz has one at Newman_L, and the spell that is NEUMANN_L. And I'm at Tom TC Geek. Feel free to follow us. And wherever you download or listen to and listen to our episodes, whether it's through iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, or iHeartRadio. Rate us if you could, please. And if you have a couple extra moments to spare, a review would be awesome as well. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. I think that's it.
Okay. Any final thoughts before we say goodnight, Gracie?
Well, thanks, Danny, for giving us the idea to talk about this stuff, for one.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Here, here.
And thanks, everybody.
I iterate, thanks everybody. Enjoy your day.
Thank you for listening once again, and definitely thank you, Danny, for the suggestion. And Liz should be back with us next week, which should be fun. It's going to be our 100th episode. It should be a blast. So until next time, read more comics and support your local stores. We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,